Well, hello and welcome to another episode of The Marc Medley Show. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the love. Always appreciative of the hand claps and of the applause. This is another episode of The Marc Medley Show, and today's episode is going to be dealing with the principle of the Golden Rule. As a matter of fact, the title of this episode is Why I Believe So Deeply in the Golden Rule. Now, for those of you who may or may not be familiar with the Golden Rule, I'm going to paraphrase it. I'm not going to read exactly as it would read in the Bible or any of our other spiritual books, because across all spiritual practices, regardless if it's Christian, Jewish, Buddha, whatever, whichever one, Muslim, you name it, the Golden Rule is a common thread or a common principle, regardless of which one of the books you read, whether it's the Quran, whether it's the Torah, whether it's the Bible, whatever one you read, the Golden Rule is in there. So you may be saying, Mark, what is the Golden Rule? I've never really heard of it called that. Well, simply, the Golden Rule is treat other people the way that you would want to be treated. Another way of saying is, if you wouldn't want somebody to do that to you, don't you do that, or whatever that is, to someone else. I am always flabbergasted and amazed at how many of my students, because you all know, if you've been listening to the show any amount of time whatsoever, that whenever I'm not hosting my radio show or either recording an episode of the podcast, I am a school principal. And I've been a school principal since 2005. And I cannot tell you how many times I've had students in my office because they've done something to their fellow classmate. And the question I would ask, or I do ask, is, would you like, or would you have liked for him or her to do what you did to him or her to you? And inevitably, the answer is 99.9% of the time, no. I don't think I've ever heard a child tell me, yes, I would want that other person to do what I did to them to me. That's what the Golden Rule is saying. The Golden Rule is saying is, if you don't want that done to you, then don't do it to someone else. And as I just said, most of the time, when I get a student in my office or two students in my office and I ask them that question, they're straight up. They tell me, no, I wouldn't want the other person to do that to me. Yet, they had no problem doing it to somebody else. Now, the Golden Rule, I firmly and strongly believe in it because I do my best to live that. I don't want to do to anyone else what I would not want someone to do to me. If I wouldn't want things inflicted upon me, then I try to think in terms of, then I won't inflict that upon anyone else. Now, I've been in situations where I've dealt with people that I know for a fact what they did for me or to me, they would not want done to them. I've been in a situation, matter of fact, 2 years ago, July, and many of you, if you've listened to the show, you notice I referenced July of 2021 a lot, because in July of 2021, a person did something to me that I know if I had done to him or her what he or she did to me, they wouldn't have liked it. They would have lost their mind. And yet it seemed like, for whatever reason, that he or she had no problem doing what he or she did to me. And like I said, if the tables were turned, it would be a whole different story. It would be a whole bunch of questions. Why did you do that? How dare you do that to me? So forth and so on. Yet again, when the push came to shove, that person had no problem whatsoever doing what he or she did to me. What you probably ask them, what did you do? They destroyed a family heirloom. They were a part of destroying a family heirloom that was over 50 years old. And I know for a fact, had I destroyed some property of that person, it would have been a whole different sing-song. And see, I'm just using that as a personal example because as we begin to look locally and nationally and globally, and I'm studying leadership right now yet again. This is my second or third time, if not more, studying this thing called leadership. And we have folks in leadership at the world, at the national, and at the local levels that have done things and who are doing things to people that I know if it was done to them, they would be crying foul. If we look globally, and again, when we start talking about Vladimir Putin, we know how it is over there in terms of information. We never know what's true and what's not true. We never know what's propaganda and what's not propaganda. So somehow a rumor, a word, or a falsity went out that Vladimir Putin was ill, was near death. The same thing went out a few years ago about Kim Jong-un, however he says his name over there in South Korea, or North Korea, whichever one it is. The same thing kind of went out a few years ago about him, a couple years ago about him, that turned out, I guess, not to be true, or at least he overcame it. I don't know which. But now we have that kind of same sort of thing against Mr. Putin. My point in sharing that is really that I'm concerned about his health is more so the things that he's done to other people. The atrocities and the murder and the crimes and the war and the this, that, and the other that he's done to other people. At some point, one way or the other, is going to come back on him, because for a fact, I'm quite sure, and maybe he would I don't know, but I'm quite sure he would not like anyone to do to his family or to him what he's done to other people and other families. Now we come here to the United States, and our former president, our 45th president, he would have been better in all honesty, because this is one of those cases where he got to the highest office, and the highest office is what now is going to bring him down. You know, sometimes, and again, I'm not going to go super spiritual on you. I'm not going to go super religious on you. But sometimes God puts us at the highest level, at the highest point to be brought down. When Donald J. Trump was just Donald J. Trump, he was doing what he was doing. He was doing that even during the time when he was just plain old developer, plain old real estate agent, this, that, and the other. He'd been doing that for years. But see, now when he did the same behavior that he'd been doing as a real estate developer, as whatever he was as a businessman, he now did the same thing as president of the United States, and now he's gotten caught up with it. And he had a whole bunch of folks with him that has gotten caught up with it, and now all of them, most of them are turning on him. Most of them are singing like birds. Matter of fact, we could put them all together and have a choir. They are singing on him and turning on him in droves. A lot of these, there's a book written, Everything Trump Touches Dies. I've read the book. It's a wonderful book, but it's coming to pass because everything and everybody that's got involved with Trump, either themselves or their careers or their reputations or their character, has now been shot down, has now been killed. I mean, you had folks like Rudy Giuliani. I mean, for the most part now, considered for the most part now, nothing. I mean, just reputation, character gone. You had all these other folks that were in politics that associated with Trump and was a part of his mess. And now he has become a part of their mess, or they have become a part of it, and they're singing and they're turning. Because the bottom line is Trump is going to fight this all the way. He is. He's got, and that's because Trump is Trump. He's going to fight it all the way. But the truth of the matter is he's going down. And all the rest of them know that. That's why they are jumping off that ship before it totally sinks to the bottom. They are trying to save their posteriors. They're trying to save their backsides. They're doing whatever is necessary for their time to be lessened, if they have to serve any at all, because they're making deals. They're cutting deals so that whatever years, maybe some years, can get shaved off of what it is that they have done if they turn now evidence against the big fish, the one who they really want. So this is another example of what you've done to others now is being done to you. The dirt and how dirty you've treated people over the years is now turning back on you. Some of us call that karma. Some say it's karma. Some say, you know, what goes around comes around. Yo, it will not come around in the time that we want, or folks will be dealt with maybe in the time that we want. But eventually, at some point along the way, the dirt that you've done to somebody else is going to come back on you. Now, it may not come back in the same way. The dirt that you did to somebody else may not come back to you in that same way. Like I said, that person that destroyed my family heirloom, maybe a family heirloom of his or hers won't be destroyed, but something else will happen. Who knows? See, you just never know what you do to people that might come back on you. And it won't come back, like I said, in some instances, it won't come back immediately, but somewhere along the way, it's going to catch you up. On our local level, we have council people have been accused now of all kinds of craziness with election fraud and fighting in council meetings and all kinds of craziness that, once again, you know good and well, if someone were to turn around and do that to them, they would not want it done to them. So when we start dealing with the golden rule is saying, if you don't want it done to you, don't you in turn do it to somebody else. In other words, we got to take a pause. We got to think for a minute before I do that to him or to her. Would I want him or her to do that to me, or anyone for that matter? So I am a firm, passionate believer in the golden rule. Do unto others as you would like done unto you. Don't do unto others as you don't want done unto you. If you wouldn't want it done to you, then don't do it to somebody else. It's very simple to me. I mean, that's one of the simpler rules to kind of give some thought to, that I wouldn't want that to happen to me. I wouldn't want that to happen to my family member. I wouldn't want that to happen to my mom. I wouldn't want that to happen to my daughter. I wouldn't want that to happen to my son. I wouldn't want that to happen to my grandson or my granddaughter or my niece or my nephew or what have you. Yet, folks have absolutely no regard for life, have no regard for anybody else's emotions or their feelings, have no regard for that whatsoever. I do a lot of work with my students in terms of trying my best to keep them out of the cemetery or out of jail. And a young man who I knew as a young child, as like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, he's 29 now, and I just learned that he's now going to jail for a murder where he literally shot somebody in the head and the person died. And now this young man at 29 is looking at 30 years to life. No regard for someone else's life. This was a child that I know and knew and tried to counsel as well, who decided he wanted to do his own thing in more than one time. This is not the first time he ran into trouble with the law, but this is going to be his last time, because with this one, the shooting of someone and killing them and weapons charges and the fact that you're an ex-con and you had other records, he gonna be in there this time for the rest of his days. But you got to think again, would you have wanted someone, because that man that he killed was someone's child, that man that he killed was someone's father, would you have wanted that to occur in your family? This same child that committed that murder, I know for a fact, would not have wanted that done to him nor anyone in his family. And yet he had no problem now taking the life of someone else, and now his life is going to be gone because he's doing 30 to life in prison himself. This is so simple, folks. I do not get it. This is just one of those things that it gets beyond me in terms of, how do you do something to someone that you know for a fact that if someone did whatever that was to you, you would not like it, you would not want it done to you, you would lose your mind and flip out and get angry and emotional and everything else. Yet, when you did it to somebody else, it didn't bother you. To be honest with you, I don't know how some of these folks sleep at night. I don't know how Donald Trump goes to sleep at night. I really don't. With all those charges against him, I don't know how he sleeps at night. This kid that I was just describing, I don't know how he's going to be sleeping now for the next 30 years to life, knowing that he took the life of somebody else. It probably doesn't bother him. I don't know how the person who destroyed my family heirloom, who destroyed a piece of furniture, a piece that I had for over 50 years, I don't know how that person has or is sleeping at night. Because, see, there are certain things that if I were to do to people, it would bother me. There's certain things, if I were to commit that particular act against another person, knowing how that would make that person feel, that would bother me. That's that thing called a conscience. So I wonder about these people. Do they have a conscience? Because if you have a conscience, the golden rule will make a lot of sense to you. If you have a conscience, there's some things you're just not going to do because you know it's going to bother you as well as it's going to make life for somebody else more difficult or bad. Because at the end of the day, we ought to be here making life better for others, not worse for others. So that's another reason why I'm a firm believer in the golden rule. All right, that's the episode for today. This is the podcast, folks. I think now in 2023, anytime you're behind a microphone is considered a podcast. But it's not so, because we still have radio broadcasts. What I do on Saturday mornings from 6 o'clock a.m. to 9 o'clock a.m. is a radio broadcast in a radio studio. What I do in this particular platform, it is a podcast. It is the Marc Medley Show. What I do on Saturday mornings from 6 o'clock a.m. to 9 o'clock a.m. is the Reading Circle with Marc Medley. It is on FM radio and it is streamed around the world. You can catch that by logging on to gobrave.org, GOBRAVE.org. Saturday mornings, Eastern Time, 6 o'clock a.m. to 9 o'clock a.m. If you log on to gobrave.org and you find the tab that says listen now, listen live, or whatever it says, you can catch the show. It's also on other platforms as well, such as the TuneIn Radio Network and some other places. This particular show, the Marc Medley Show, is heard on all major podcast platforms. You name the podcast platform, the Marc Medley Show is there. And then if you want to get in touch with me, if you go to my website, marcamedley.com. That's MarcAmedley.com. That is the portal to all of my various social media sites, all of my endeavors in terms of the radio show, in terms of the podcast, in terms of my music, because the music playing in the background on my original compositions, the school that I lead, everything is on my website. So if you go to marcamedley.com, MarcAmedley.com, go to my website, you can find out whatever it is you want to find out about me. That is a part of my personal brand, if you will. My branding, I brand Marc A. Medley. That is my brand. So if you go to marcamedley.com, you can find out just about anything you want to find out for me there. Please do me a favor. Follow the golden rule. Do me a favor. If every individual would just live the golden rule, oh, what a better world we would have. If each individual said, let me be peace. Let me be peace on earth. Let it be peace on earth and let it begin with me. If each individual said, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me, every individual in the world had that mindset, oh, what a better world we would have. If every individual in the world said, you know what, I'm going to practice the golden rule. I'm not going to do something to somebody that I don't want done to me. Oh, what a world we would have. Instead of, I'm going to do what I want to do to somebody else, regardless if it's good, bad, or indifferent, and I don't care. All right, that's it for today. This is the Marc Medley Show. It's been a pleasure being with you as always. Until the next time.